Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I really wanted to talk about some positional battles that we could be seeing at Jets training camp. Okay, as we all know, training camp is right around the corner here. Now, before we dive into the little list, I do want to preface by just saying that, you know, if there's certain positions on this roster, because the Jets are really young, because we don't really have legitimate superstars all over the place, much like a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or something like that, a bunch of positions aren't they're not locked in. So if Breece Hall wins the running back job, I'm fully expecting Michael Carter to see a lot of time. You know, if we look at the wide receiver position, and let's just say on paper the starters are Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, I don't see Braxton Berrios just riding the bench, right? I definitely envision him having time. So with that said, let's talk about some positional battles. So first position on the list here, weak side linebacker. I feel like this one is completely up in the air. And of course, you can make the argument, hey, there's a lot of nickel that's being ran now, and we're going to be seeing a lot of two linebacker sets. CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams, and of course bringing in a second secondary member. But I do feel like, you know, in the typical 4-3 base defense, we got to have a guy out there that's reliable, a guy who can cover, a guy who can move well in space. And right now I'm looking at the roster, it's super young. So I would say right now it's between three players. Jamie Sherwood, okay, going into year 2. Hamza Najruddin, also going into year 2. Or a potential free agent, okay? One guy that we've talked about over and over and over on this channel is Quan Alexander. You know, he's a guy that he's still out there on the open market. Obviously, he's not commanding $10-15 million a season, nothing like that at all. If anything, it would be really cheap. He signed a 1-year contract worth $1.1 million for the Saints last year, a complete steal. You know, this is a guy who played in 12 games, started in 8, put up pretty respectable numbers given the circumstances, and he knows the system, right? He's actually a familiar face with Robert Saleh. You know, a couple years ago, he was a big money free agent that the 49ers defense brought in, okay? So I think it makes a lot of sense, but I do want to just throw that out there. So we have the two young guys going into year 2. And then, of course, maybe a Quan Alexander, right? Supposedly, the Jets have a offer on the table. You know, that was reported, I think maybe a couple weeks ago now. The Jets had an offer out for both Larry Ogunjobi and Quan Alexander, kind of a take it or leave it type of deal. So we'll see what happens. But I think weak side linebacker completely up in the air. Okay, so next up is safety here. Now, Jordan Whitehead was brought in from Tampa Bay. I absolutely love Jordan Whitehead. I think a lot of Jets fans are really going to respond well and really enjoy watching this guy play. He hits really hard. He plays with a lot of heart, a lot of energy, and I feel like that's something that the Jets really lacked, especially on the back end of the defense last year when Marcus May went down with an injury. You know, this guy's coming over from a winning program, Super Bowl champion. He's same team with Tom Brady, Bruce Arians. You know, there was so much star power, so much winning that happened in the last couple of seasons with Tampa Bay. He is coming to a team that's a bottom 5 team in football record-wise a season ago. I definitely feel like that's going to help. I think he's going to be monumental in the locker room, but think about the safety. Who's going to be playing the other spot? That one is wide open. Is it going to be Ashton Davis, former 3rd-round pick made by Joe Douglas, hasn't really done a ton at the NFL level so far? But we'll see what happens. Is it going to be newly converted safety, right? Former corner, now safety, Jason Pinnock, a guy who has great size, great strength. I feel like showed some promising things at the back. I'm not saying he's a top 5 safety or anything like that, but you know, in the short amount of time that we saw him play safety last season, and taking everything into consideration, learning it on the fly, not having a training camp to prepare for safety at all. Again, being a cornerback for the entire season, I think just saying, Jason, you're a safety now, you're going to play and practice and train like a safety, I think that's going to help his learning curve and just his overall growth as a player going into next season. So I definitely feel like the Jets coaching staff is onto something. There could be a method to the madness there. I could see him starting. Who else? Maybe Elijah Riley, maybe Will Parks. I wouldn't rule those guys out. And of course, LaMarcus Joyner, okay, the veteran option here, who was brought back by the team, who won the starting job last year along with Marcus May, signing that one-year contract, but gets hurt, okay? And like many players of the Jets last season, tons of guys missed time. Lawson, Becton, May, Corey Davis. We could go down the list. I don't want to get into the injuries, but if I had to guess, I would probably say it's either going to be LaMarcus starting or Jason at that other safety position. Okay, next up, position number 3 here. In my opinion, a position that should not be overlooked. It's backup quarterback. Okay, who's going to be QB2 for the Jets in 2022? Think back to last year. Zach Wilson got hurt. He missed time. Rewind even further, Sam Darnold missed time every single year. All 3 years that he was with the New York Jets, he missed time. Okay, so we've had injuries at the quarterback position. Granted, one of those Darnold years was because of mono. It wasn't because of an injury. I do think that's important to point out, but the point remains the same. The starting quarterback has been yet to play a full season for the New York Jets in quite some time. So let's play it safe. Let's have a solid plan B. And I like Mike White a lot. I really like Joe Flacco, a veteran option who could run the offense effectively, move the ball. You know, again, a veteran in this league. He has seen so many different defenses. He has won a ton of games. He's a Super Bowl champion, not to mention the cannon that he has for an arm. But who's going to win the job? Is it going to be Flacco, the seasoned vet, or is it going to be, you know, Mr. 400 yards in his debut against the Bengals, Mike White? If I had to take a guess, I would probably lean more towards Joe Flacco because of the veteran experience, because of the overall starting experience, and Joe Douglas went out and traded away a draft asset to bring him back in the middle of last season. For those reasons, I think Flacco is going to be the quarterback too, but I don't want to write Mike White off. I don't want to say, yeah, he's definitely going to be the third quarterback on the roster and could potentially be on the bubble. I don't think so. The Jets brought him back for a reason as well. Okay, next up, we're going to be talking about the D-line here. Now, we've heard Ulbrich say that there's going to be fresh bodies in. There was a controversial comment about snap count, you know, percentage of time that certain guys are out there. And I get the idea, you know, I understand it. I don't think it's necessarily smart to put a pitch count on guys because football is just a completely different game than, you know, baseball. You know, I think critical situations, certain games, you know, where are you at in the game? What's the score? I think all these things come into play that you just don't have the answer to right now. Of course, there's things that you can do to, you know, limit playing time here or limit fatigue. But with that said, what's going to be the projected starting 4 down linemen in the 4-3 defense? We all know this here. It's huge. It is absolutely imperative that the front 4 down linemen get after the quarterback. If you can't do that, okay, if they cannot do that, quarterbacks will pick you apart. It's not like the Todd Bowles defense. It's not like the Rex Ryan defense where you have blitzers coming from every angle, where you don't know what's happening. Guys are standing up, moving around. He's on one side over here. Maybe a couple plays later, he's the same guys over there. You don't know where anybody's coming from, and it's just a chaotic mess. It's more, I don't want to say set in stone, but you kind of have an idea of what's coming at you, you know, in the eyes of a quarterback. If I had to say who I think would be starting on the D-line day one, I'm going to say Carl Lawson, obviously as one of the edge rushers, no surprise there. I think on the inside, we're going to have Quinnen Williams, a big season for him. We're really counting on him, especially after the loss to Fadakasi. We all really need a big year from Quinnen. Next to Quinnen, JFM on the inside, really interesting. I feel like he has so much power, so much strength, so much potential that has not been reached. And if he could just, I mean, because he'll flash, man. Like, at times, John Franklin Myers is flat out dominant. And then there's games where you don't really see him that much. So if we could just get some more consistency from JFM, you know, this season, primarily moving to the inside of back to the inside of the defensive line, maybe the production's going to go up, right? Working with Saleh as opposed to Greg Williams and Adam Gase in, you know, previous years. And then, of course, on the outside, the other defensive end spot, I'm going to say it's Jermaine Johnson. Now, there has been some talk that he might not be the full-time, you know, like the guy out of the gate, and there might be some time for him to, like he's going to come off the bench from time to time early, but I'm going to say he's going to be the starter, okay? I mean, we look at the other moves that the Jets made. They signed Jacob Martin. They re-signed Vinny Curry. Okay, 2 interesting pieces there. And Bryce Huff is still on the roster. So there could be some movement there, but I'm going to say right now it's going to be Lawson, Q, JFM, and Jermaine Johnson. Okay, so next up is tight end here, and this is kind of one of those positions like we were talking about before, wide receiver, running back. Who's going to be the starting tight end? You know, if it's Uzama, awesome. If it's Conklin, sweet. I think it doesn't really matter, but it will be interesting to see who is relied on more in the Mike LaFleur offense. Is it going to be Tyler or CJ? I like Ruckert a lot. I don't know if he's going to leapfrog both of those veteran options year one. I mean, if he does, then, you know, I think we have an absolutely loaded tight end room for, you know, at least for the foreseeable future, if that's the case. But I think right now I'm kind of in the mindset, I'm all for giving Ruckert, you know, some playing time this season, but I do think it's smart to kind of redshirt him, you know, give these snaps to Conklin, give these snaps to CJ. Both are older guys. Both are coming off career seasons. Both guys fit the system extremely well. I'm totally excited to see what this new tight end room for the New York Jets looks like in 2022, but who's going to be the guy? Right? Who is going to be the guy that lines up the most for this Jets offense? It could go either way. I'm leaning more towards Conklin though. And last but not least, the big position here, right? The big one, left tackle. Who is going to be the Jets starting left tackle? Sorry about the crashing and everything like that. There's a huge thunderstorm going on outside. But is it going to be Becton or George Fant? That's the question. Becton, season-ending injury. There has been storyline after storyline, report after report about Mekhi Becton. The Jets are concerned about his weight. There's overall size concerns. There was, you know, something before the draft. He's played his last down as a member of the New York Jets. Joe Douglas obviously passed on every offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds. I don't think a former offensive lineman, a general manager that really values offensive linemen is going to say, I don't feel comfortable with Mekhi Becton, and then proceed to not sign anybody or draft anybody in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that's what's happening in New York. Okay, I do think there's a belief from the front office that Mekhi Becton can get back to his rookie season form and dominate. If that's the case, the Jets are in great hands moving forward. Okay, now with that said, George Fant took over for Mekhi Becton last year and looked great, right? Given the circumstances, George Fant put out a really solid year in my opinion. He was durable, he was reliable. I felt like in pass protection, the Jets could really count on him. He wasn't just getting beat off the line every single down, like we've seen, you know, some tackles across the NFL. Some teams, you know, the offensive line is a real Achilles heel and has neutralized teams from winning games, right? I mean, we hear it all the time with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. Get him an offensive line. Get him an offensive line. The Jets luckily have the inside completely locked down with Lakin, Connor McGovern, and AVT. But what's happening at tackle? Luckily, we have one in George Fant. Becton, kind of the curveball here. If he's healthy, if he's in shape, then I'm totally excited. But if he's not healthy, if he's not practicing, if he gets hurt again, if the coaches are, if it comes out in maybe a press conference or an interview that Mekhi Becton is, overweight or something like that, then there could be an issue. Because the Jets did not, and yes, they did draft Max Mitchell, and we still have some young guys on the roster like McDermott and Chuma Edoga, but they had their opportunities to go out and look. They still do. Eric Fisher is still out there. Dwayne Brown is still out there. I don't know if he's really an option anymore given the recent incident. But even Riley Reef, as a veteran option. I think right now the tackle position on the outside of training camp looking in, we're in a good spot. Becton and Fant, we'll see what happens. We'll see who wins the left tackle spot. It's the assumption that the loser is going to kick over to right tackle, and we'll see how it all unfolds. There's really nothing more to it. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and as always, go Jets.